One of the really powerful things about his name, referring to the one that was, the one that is, and one that always shall be, is that if you call him by that name, Yehovah, by his personal name, the name he tells us that is his name forever, that you can avoid ambiguity. And let's think about this. If you're speaking to a Hindu from India, and you say to that man, I believe in God, and he says, I also believe in God. Are you talking about the same God? No. I don't know, maybe you are. It's arguable. They have many gods. One of those might be the same as ours. I don't know. I'm not an expert on Hinduism. And if you say, I believe in the God who created the heaven and the earth, and he says, I also believe in the God who created the heaven and the earth. Are we talking about the same God? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And we could go to, this is something that I know is very hotly debated. If we speak to a Muslim and we say, I believe in the God of Abraham. He says, I also believe in the God of Ibrahim. Is that the same God? And that's something that, people will disagree with and argue about. But if you say, I believe in Yehovah, I believe in Yahweh, I believe in the creator of heaven and earth, who is called he that was, he that is, and he that will be, and we give his personal name, there's no question of who we're talking about. And we can actually learn this from Abraham, our forefather, who originally was called Avram. When he meets the king of Sodom, he uses the name Yehovah to cut through all the ambiguity. And now this is one of my favorite stories. It's Genesis 14. I love this story because I go down to the Dead Sea whenever I have a chance, one of my favorite places in the world, and I look across the plain of the Dead Sea that at one time we're told was full of water. It was a fully, very lush place. I mean, it was essentially like a rainforest, like the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. It really was. And now it's one of the driest places on earth. Literally one of the driest places on earth. And it actually says there, it's interesting how it describes it in Genesis. It says it was like the garden of Elohim, the garden of God, meaning Eden, and it says like like the land of Egypt. Because the image for an Israelite of a place that was always perpetual water throughout the year, that's Egypt. Israel's not like Egypt. Israel doesn't have perpetual water throughout the year. We're dependent upon rain from God. And it tells us in Deuteronomy that God's eyes are upon the land of Israel throughout the year. And through his rain, he's expressing his grace towards us, his mercy towards us, because we couldn't live for a single year if we didn't have that blessing of the rain. In Egypt, they always have water. They just, they have the river that perpetually flows through the land. And Israel's not like that. Israel's a desert country that's dependent upon the rain. So you look across the plain of the Dead Sea, where if you're lucky, it rains 2 or 3 times a year. And you think back, and thousands of years ago, this place was like the garden of Elohim, like the land of Egypt. And now it's dry as could be when God overturned Sodom and Gomorrah. But back when it was this lush garden, 5 kings invaded the land of Israel. They came from the land of Shinar, which today is Iraq, and eastern Turkey. And they came into the land, 4 kings, and they attacked the 5 kings. And I always thought that was a weird story. How did the 4 kings defeat the 5 kings? The 5 were more than the 4, but I guess they had better tactics, and maybe they even had more people, even though there were fewer kings. They capture all this property and all the people from the 5 kings, and they take them back to Iraq and eastern Turkey. And Abraham hears about this, and he's very upset. Now, why is Abraham upset? Because Lot, his nephew, is among the captives who've been taken. They've taken property and people who they're going to then take to Iraq and sell as slaves. And Abraham hears about this, and he mobilizes his army, his men, 318 men he has, and he goes after them. And he descends upon them in the night, and he liberates all the people who have been taken. And he brings them back. And on the way back, everyone's coming out. They want to greet Abraham. They want to praise him. They want to love on him. They say, Abraham, you're the greatest. We want to be involved. We want a piece of this. How are we going to get a piece of this? We want to be next to you. We want to bless you, because we can see that God has blessed you. And one of the people who comes out to bless him is a man named Melchizedek. Malki-Tzedek, which means my righteous king. And we're told that Melchizedek, he blesses Abraham, and his blessing is a really interesting statement. It appears in Genesis 14, verse 19. It says, and Melchizedek blessed him and said, blessed is Avram by the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Now, Melchizedek, we're told, is a priest of the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, and he's a righteous man. He's made as an archetype, he's later mentioned in Psalm 110, so Melchizedek is okay, he's kosher. When he says the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, it's not like speaking to that Indian. I know that he's speaking about the same God as I worship. Now, one of the things about the Canaanites is they also worshiped a God called El Elyon, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. Uh-oh. And their God, they believed, created the universe, and when he was done creating the universe, he retired. He went to what's called the mountain of the north, sat in his palace, and turned over the ruling of the universe to his children. And his children fought it out, and eventually his son, the son of the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, whose name was Baal, in English you say Baal, but his name was Baal, which means the Lord. He became the ruler of the physical universe while his father was sleeping and resting on the mountain of the north. And if you were an ancient Canaanite, you didn't pray to the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. What Melchizedek did was scandalous in the land of Canaan. You didn't pray to the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, because he was retired. You prayed to his son, Baal. And Avram meets Melchizedek and he says, okay, I got no problem with you. But then the king of Sodom shows up. And Avram gets really nervous because he says, if I use, out of respect, the same terms that Melchizedek used and refer to the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth, the king of Sodom might think I'm talking about his God, the father of Baal, the father of their Lord. And so Avram decides, I'm going to use those terms that Melchizedek used out of respect, but I'm going to take back the terms that the Canaanites have usurped. I'm going to restore these terms that have been taken over by this idolatrous faith. And what does Avram say in verses 21 to 22? It says, and Avram said to the king of Sodom, and here now the king of Sodom wants to bless Avram. He says, I'll give you all the property, just give me the people back. Avram says, I lift my hand to Yehovah, the Most High God, creator of heaven and earth. He uses the exact same terms as Melchizedek, but he adds the name. Because when you're speaking with a Sodomite, you need to be clear of who we're talking about. The king of Sodom could be talking about anybody. Avram cuts through that and uses the name. He uses the name to avoid that ambiguity. Now, one of the powerful things about using this name versus only using the titles, and the titles are beautiful, wonderful. El Shaddai and El Elyon and Elohim, use them all the time and pray with those names, those titles, nothing wrong with them. But if you use those only and not the unique name, then you end up with what I was taught was called at the university syncretism. Say syncretism. Syncretism is this big fancy word. It's like when you sync your iPod with your computer. Your iPod has half the songs and your computer has half the songs, and you sync them and you get the full set of songs. You get the original songs from the iPod with those added songs from the computer. And when you sync the faith of Israel with the pagan faith, you get the true songs mixed in with the false songs.